What's up guys, it's Anthony from ineptechs.com, and today we're here with our all-new ineptechs project truck. This is our 2003 Isuzu Rodeo. We're gonna fix this baby up, but first, let's go take it for a ride. Alright, so what do we have here? This is our 2003 Isuzu Rodeo. This was Isuzu's sort of premier SUV at the time. The Rodeo was first introduced in the early 90s, started in 1990, and ran all the way through 2004. Now, as the sort of SUV explosion happened in the late 90s, this truck kind of lost some of its luster. It never really adapted, never really changed, and so in 2004, the run eventually ended. So what's this truck like to drive now? Well, this particular one is a V6 rear-wheel drive with a 4-speed automatic transmission. The suspension's pretty soft, and that's nice for puttering around town, you know, going back and forth from the grocery store, taking the kids to soccer practice, the kind of things that this car was really made to do. But driving it on these windy, curvy roads like this that are fairly rough, it's kind of terrifying. The car tips and rolls. There's so much body roll in this thing. And you ride up so high, and the center of gravity in this car is so high that you pretty much constantly feel around every corner like this could be the one you're gonna tip over on. In fact, this truck has a big warning sticker right here above your head that says, "Warning, high rollover risk." And it's not really very reassuring. In fact, the four-wheel drive variant of this car is actually a fairly popular car still today among off-road enthusiasts. You know, there's a lot of them that modify them and put big lift kits and big tires, and you can see how this truck could be a pretty capable off-roader if it was equipped properly. Now, like I said, this one is the two-wheel drive version, so you're not going to be doing much off-roading in it. Now, probably the biggest weakness on this car, one of the biggest weaknesses of this car, is its brakes. This thing weighs over 2 tons, about 4,100 pounds, and you feel it when you try and stop. Up front, on this particular model, it's got 2 disc brakes up front and 2 drum brakes on the rear. And that's just not enough to stop this 2-ton vehicle. Now, the biggest weakness of this truck is without a doubt its transmission. This one is equipped with a 4-speed automatic, and it's bad. It's just, compared to modern standards, it's terrible. It's slow to shift, and it's rough to shift, and it's only got 4 speeds, so the gears are really, really long, but it still seems like it's constantly shifting. It's like every other second it's wanting to be in a different gear, and it can't make up its mind, and you're back and forth, and it's bad. It's a bad transmission. Now, one of the interesting things about this transmission is it has multiple modes. It's actually got a winter driving mode and a power mode. There's actually a button right here that says power. Now, any car with a power button certainly has my attention. And surprisingly, this button actually improves the transmission quite a bit. You put this thing in a power mode, and the car rides out the RPMs before it switches gears longer than it does without it in power mode. The gear shifts are also a little bit quicker, and it just makes the whole experience better. It seems like all of a sudden this truck is driving how it should. I actually find myself driving around in this car with power mode on, not because I'm trying to get anywhere fast, but just because the transmission behaves a lot better when it's in power mode. And one more thing about this transmission. When this car came out, you could actually buy it with a 5-speed manual box, and I think that transmission would go a long, long way to improving this car. Now, the engine, up front we've got a 3.2-liter V6, making about 205 horsepower. The V6 does a good job of getting this thing up and going. It doesn't feel slow, but it's certainly not quick. 0 to 60 comes somewhere about 9 to 10 seconds-ish. It doesn't really matter. It's an SUV. let's talk about the interior, because it didn't really change much in the 13 years this car was around. And that was the big problem for this car at the end of its run, that its competitors, your Nissans and Toyotas and Lexuses even, had much, much nicer interiors for not much more money, and they were more comfortable to be in. This thing, the interior, everything is plastic. And in the early 90s, that was acceptable, but by the time we got to 2003, it just felt dated and cheap. Now look, I know I've been ragging on this truck and how it performs, and that's not really fair, because when you think about what this car was built for, who its target market was, this car does a pretty good job. I mean, it was made to be your standard family hauler for parents with small kids. And while it may have fallen behind a little bit behind its competitors, and the interior isn't great, it was still a decent option at the time, and it was a cheap option. It was a fairly affordable car, and it's incredibly practical. There is so much room in this truck. The trunk is massive. It's massive, and you fold down those back seats, there's so much room back there for hauling anything. So that's enough rambling about what this car has, what this car doesn't have, what it does, what it doesn't do. Let's talk about what we're going to do with this particular car. Over the next few episodes, we're going to address some of the issues that this particular car has. We're going to fix it up, and then we're going to sell it. Now, it's pretty mechanically sound, with the exception of the brakes, which we are going to address. This car's in pretty good shape, especially for a truck that basically didn't get any maintenance other than oil changes for 96,000 miles. Now, the biggest things we're going to address are going to be cosmetic. It's got some front end damage from a parking lot collision that needs to be addressed, and the paint is kind of fading, the interior is kind of gross. We're going to address all that step by step in a series of videos here on ineptechs. So keep it locked right here on ineptechs.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ineptechs, and on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, as we're going to do all of these things in short videos and articles and all that good stuff. You're going to see everything we do to get this car ready to sell. As always, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time we get this project started.